All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. And as folks join, they'll be able to hop right in. So welcome everyone to our special edition webinar with the Extension Disaster Education Network. This webinar is about USDA NIFA's new AFRI program, A1712. The focus of this program is rapid response to extreme weather events across food and agriculture. So before we get started, I wanted to share a couple of important details. The first is to reduce interruptions and distractions for everyone. We just ask participants to keep their microphones on mute. And then when the time comes for questions, you are welcome to unmute and ask those. Also, our team will be monitoring the chat box and we'll be sharing some important links in that throughout. And you are welcome to ask questions or share your comments at any time of our prepared remarks. And then just know too, we're also going to leave plenty of time at the end for your questions. So at this time, I am going to pass it over to Danielle to get us started.
Thank you, Ashley. And before we jump into the details of this new program, we want to disclose that the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. And in accordance with federal civil rights law and USDA civil rights regulations and policies, the USDA, its agencies, offices, employees, and institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, including gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family, parental status, income derived from public assistance programs, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. Any incidents of discrimination should be reported to our Acting Director of Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights, Jessica Creighton, at jessica.creighton@usda.gov. All right, so our agenda for today includes an introduction of our team, the Rapid Response Program overview, a demonstration and tour of our webpage and resources, and lastly, we will end with a question and answer session. So again, like Ashley mentioned, feel free to drop your questions in the chat as they come to you during our presentation, or if you feel more comfortable, hold them to the end and we'll be happy to take them. So this program team is quite unique for NIFA. We have 8 staff from all 4 institutes at NIFA. Our division director, Dr. Peter Thompson, is housed in the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate and Environment and has extensive knowledge and experience regarding extreme weather events from his previous position at NOAA. We have 3 national program leaders on our team. Many of you know Dr. Ashley Mueller from her previous work with Eden. Here at NIFA, she is housed in the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community and acts as our risk and crisis communication expert. Dr. Amy Ganguli is housed in the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate, and Environment and is a rangeland restoration specialist and ecosystem ecologist. It's also Dr. Ganguli's birthday, so feel free to wish her happy birthday in the chat. Our 3rd national program leader is Dr. Michelle Colby, who is a veterinarian, and she is housed in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. Her expertise involves animal biosecurity and food animal veterinary medicine. We have 2 program specialists on this team. Dr. Courtney Simmons is a biological program specialist housed in the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition, and she has expertise in nutritional food safety and microbiology. My name is Danielle Farley, and I am a social science program specialist housed in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. My expertise is risk and crisis communication and knowledge management. Some of you may have met me at the Spokane annual meeting a few years ago. Next, we have the honor to have Dr. Derica Alexander on our team, who is a AAAS fellow. She is also a veterinarian and has a master's of public health and is housed in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. Lastly, we have our amazing program assistant, Andy Thompson, who keeps us all on track and organized. She is housed in the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate, and the Environment.
Thanks, Danielle. But I appreciate your introduction of the team, and it has just been such a joy to get to work with a great group of individuals to launch this new program. So a little bit about A1712. So although, over the years, USDA NIFA has had programs that have funded critical disaster-related research, extension, and teaching activities, we recognize that there was a funding gap for rapid or near real-time rapid response to extreme weathers and disasters. So with this particular program, we're striving to deploy funding for response activities. So keeping in mind that this is truly a response grant program to inform short-term and long-term recovery, mitigation, and preparedness in the food and agriculture system. So as we look at then the purpose of this particular program, it is designed to rapidly deploy strategies and to fill knowledge and information gaps. It's intended to focus on our food and agricultural supply chains, as well as the people who support them. So our intent is to see projects that buffer disaster impacts and to ensure the availability of safe, nutritious, and affordable food for everyone. Finally, the funded projects through this program must directly address effects associated with an extreme weather event or a disaster. So applicants have a unique opportunity to justify the urgency of their situation and articulate their specific, unique, and individualized needs for funding. So in that vein, we recognize, especially as a team, that no two weather events are the same and neither are their impacts. So applicant eligibility is not tied to disaster declarations. We thought that that was really important. So in some cases, right, we know that getting an actual declaration can take weeks and even months. And we felt to be truly responsive, we had to look at this situation a little differently. So to share, USDA NIFA, though, will not monitor these extreme weather events or disasters or announce an open call for submissions. So rather, we're encouraging applicants to really use data from their local National Weather Service office, local or state farm service agency, state or federal emergency management agency, and even local partners in application narratives. Next slide. So it is NIFA's intent to fund projects that provide solutions then that can be rapidly adopted. After all, this is a rapid response program. So we anticipate a variety of innovative approaches to extension projects and integrated extension and research that may include but not be limited to things like trainings and exercises, communication strategies, tools and technologies, management strategies, and logistics. So more information about this program can be found starting on page 98 of the FY 2022 AFRI Foundational and Applied Science RFA. So we're going to post that link in the chat if we haven't already, but if you're not familiar with AFRI, this stands for the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, and it is the nation's leading competitive grants program for agricultural sciences. So AFRI was established by Congress in 2008 in the Farm Bill, and it was reauthorized in the 2018 Farm Bill. So to be very clear, A1712, the program we're talking to you about today, is a part of AFRI. Next slide. So the Rapid Response to Extreme Weather Program seeks project applications that, one, focus on critical and urgent solutions in rapid response to disaster impacts on the nation's food and agricultural systems. It also seeks to fund projects that clearly describe short-term deliverables within 3 months of award receipt, right? So we've talked about the essence of this program being rapid response. So we want to see that products and deliverables are available to end users quickly. And then finally, project applications must clearly define the geographic scope of the project as it relates to the weather-related event or a disaster. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the 3 emphasis areas for this program. So project applications must address one or more of the following emphasis areas: agroecosystem resilience, commodity and nutrition security, and health, well-being, and safety. And we do provide additional details about these emphasis areas in the AFRI RFA. And so really encourage you to take some time to read that RFA and understand what each of those emphasis areas includes. Next slide. So the project types for this program are either the extension project type and integrated research and extension project type. The grant types for this program include standard, strengthening standard, or phase, which are the food and agricultural science enhancement grants, and the coordinated agricultural project CAP grant, which will fund a large-scale multi-million-dollar grant. So now I will turn it over, I believe, to Danielle, who will share information about the coordinated agricultural project grant type.
All right, so what is a CAP grant? That's what we like to call it. It's a coordinated agricultural project, or CAP grant for short. And it's a large scale, multi-million-dollar project to promote collaboration, open communication, and the exchange of information. These projects reduce duplication of effort and reduces duplication of effort and coordinates activities among individuals, institutions, states, and regions. As stated, this is a new program to NIFA this year, and we anticipate awarding one CAP grant for fiscal year 2022 for approximately $3 million. The duration of the CAP grant is 24 months, and we are limiting this CAP grant to extension-only projects. The application deadline for the CAP grant is May 12th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And for applicants interested in applying for the extension CAP grant, they must have the capacity to act, which involves the ability to promptly accept and review proposals for subawards, award projects for rapid initiation at subaward institutions, and provide post-award management, including project oversight and reporting for their own endeavors and for those of the subawardees. Additionally, CAP applicants must also describe a management plan of the grant and how they will collaborate with Eden. As such, Eden Executive Council, you all may be contacted by interested applicants for guidance on how best to coordinate efforts. Applicants may also ask for a letter of support from the Eden Executive Council Committee. Before applying, applicants should familiarize themselves with the information in the AFRI RFA for eligibility. We also invite Eden Executive Council and Eden delegates to review this criteria, as you all are a critical role in the execution of the awarded CAP grant. Eligible applicants include state agricultural experiment stations, colleges and universities, including junior colleges offering associate degrees or higher, university research foundations, other research institutions and organizations, federal agencies, national laboratories, private organizations and corporations, individuals who are U.S. citizens, nationals, or permanent residents, any group consisting of two or more of these entities that I've previously mentioned. And with that, I will hand you over to Dr. Ganguli.
Excellent, thank you. So let's start off with the standard grant. A standard grant supports the targeted original scientific research, education, extension, or projects that integrate any of these components. It's one of the 5 main categories of grants, grant types across AFRI. Next slide. Now, another term that some people have probably come across if you're familiar with our programs is phase, which stands for Food and Agriculture Science Enhancement Grants. These grants strengthen science capabilities in research, education, and/or extension programs. They're designed to help institutions develop competitive projects and to attract new scientists and educators into careers in high priority areas of national need, so agriculture, food, and environmental sciences. These grants provide support for pre or postdoctoral fellowships, new investigators, and strengthening grants, which are grant type for this program. Next slide. So the strengthening grant is just one type of the phase grants, and it's expected to enhance institutional capacity with the goal of leading to future funding. So we're really looking at this as a platform to build upon. And it's designed to strengthen the competitiveness of an investigator or project director's research, extension, or education activities. The work proposed for strengthening grants must address the specific program area priorities under the program area descriptions in the RFA, and all applications submitted for strengthening grants must fulfill the eligibility requirements. Next slide, please. So when we look at the eligibility requirements, NIFA determines the states that are eligible for the EPSCoR program. And the list includes states having funding levels no higher than the 38th percentile. And so this slide shows the different types and that are included under strengthening. We also have a list that includes the small to mid-sized institutions as well as the minority serving institutions. And we'll make sure to post links where you can find that information in the chat box. Next slide, please. So in part one of the AFRI RFA, applicants will find information about the Rapid Response to Extreme Weather Program Standard and Strengthening Standard or phase grant types. This information includes the funding amount, the number of awards, the duration of the award, the project type, and the application deadline. Now, the grant award size for this program is $300,000, or this grant type, and we fully expect to award numerous in this fiscal year. And that total amount includes indirect costs. The project period is a total of 12 months, and the project types for this program are either extension or integrated research and extension. We have the application. This is a rolling application, and so we accept these on a rolling basis and ask for letters of intent that those be submitted within 14 days of an event, and the application will be due 21 days after the letter of intent decision. So again, in the true nature of wanting to make this a rapid program, we have set those ambitious timelines. So next slide, please. Now this slide should look familiar. This is the eligibility list for single function extension projects, where those institutions that are provided here are exactly the same that Danielle had described earlier. So we'll go on to the integrated criteria next. So for projects that are integrated, either extension or research, the eligibility is a bit more limited. However, it does allow for collaboration. So the project director in this case can be from a college or university, 1994 land grant institutions, which are tribal colleges, or Hispanic serving agricultural colleges and universities. So for further clarity on the terms college or university, we encourage you to review Part 3, Section A of the AFRI RFA. Applicants must respond to the program area priorities and the deadlines found in Part 1, Section C of the RFA. And just as a reminder, grant recipients may subcontract to organizations that are not eligible. So again, this is a wonderful opportunity to encourage partnerships. Failure to meet an eligibility criterion by the application deadline may result in the application being excluded from consideration, or even though an application may be reviewed, we may preclude NIFA, or it may preclude NIFA from making an award. We keep on referring people back to the RFA. A lot of the questions that people have can be addressed there. So we encourage people to review it with regards to the eligibility, Part 3, Section B of the AFRI RFA. Now I'm going to pass this over to Ashley, who will talk about the application review process.
All right, well, thanks, Amy. Yeah, so we've shared some specific information with you all regarding the distinct grant types that we have for this program. And so wanted to reinforce and remind that there are really two kind of separate timelines here that just wanted to take the time to highlight. So keep in mind that what you see here on the screen, is the general overview. And of course, we will always keep applicants updated and as much as possible, but we do appreciate patience in that review process. So first, just to go over that coordinated agricultural project. So this is the aspect of the program you heard about from Danielle. So we're looking at this timeline of proposal, preparation, and submission over 2 months. So the AFRI Foundational and Applied Science RFA was released on, I believe, March 9th and early March. And so we are looking, as a reminder, a deadline for that CAP grant is May 12th. So in that time, we are encouraging teams to get together, start determining projects and preparing that proposal and working with their business and grants office to get that submitted. Then we're looking at a review period of about 1 to 2 months. So this is when and after that proposal is submitted, that it is under review through that external peer review process. And then through that, strengths and weaknesses of the project are really evaluated for that as part of that competitive process. And then the funding notification then is made. And so then after that, there is some time that we allow for to ensure that that award is finalized, and then that awardee is prepared and then ready to implement their specific project as it relates to the CAP. On the right-hand side, and this is the part of the program that Amy discussed, so the standard and strengthening standard grant type. So keep in mind that this is really related then to a very specific, distinct local extreme weather event or a disaster. And so thinking about where you may live or work, right, those hazards that really could impact important aspects of extension and research. So thinking about this then, right, and this is our opportunity to inform you about this program so that you can prepare yourself, right? Now is the time, the blue sky times are the times to get ready. And so there is a letter of intent process with this. And so within 14 days of that extreme weather event or a disaster, a letter of intent will need to be crafted and then submitted to NIFA. And then that letter of intent, so basically sharing, right, the intent of the project, the potential team that would be involved, right, descriptions there. And then once that is reviewed, then we at NIFA provide then that invitation to a specific applicant regarding their proposal. And if invited, then that applicant or that application team will then prepare and submit that proposal within 21 days. So we're talking about 3 weeks there to then formulate all of the details needed. And then because this is a very unique program and we've entitled it Rapid Response for a reason, we are going to be really focusing on then ensuring that those proposals that are submitted through the standard and strengthening standard grant type, that they are quickly reviewed and reviewed in a way that, again, really focuses on the merit of those particular projects and vetting for those strengths and weaknesses there. And then finally, of course, in just leaning into the rapid nature of what we've designed, proposal funding notification and award finalization then also we anticipate to happen very rapidly as well. So Again, just wanted to do a comparison chart here to show, right, the differences between those grant types and then the timeline for those applications. Next slide. So we've shared a lot of information with you, and you may be wondering, right, like this is a response program, so what can I be doing right now, especially as it relates to that standard and strengthening standard grant type? So, yep, response, right? We're talking very much and related to an extreme weather incident, okay? So if anyone who understands this, I know it's the Extension Disaster Education Network, and so you all know the time to prepare is now. And so we've kind of crafted a few points of encouragement for you to consider as you are, mulling over what we've shared with you today, but also too as you're starting to have conversations at your institution. So the first is, and we've mentioned the RFA multiple times here, is really and truly read that RFA. There is a lot of information there, but it is valuable and it will help you understand the ins and outs of this particular program. So as a reminder, A1712, this program, you can find information on it in the Foundational and Applied Science RFA for AFRI. And so it starts on page 98. So read it and then reread it and then reread it again. Also, as we know, situational awareness is really everything. So start that conversation. Talk with your program leader, talk with your extension director, your ag research director, your extension evaluation team, the list goes on. But don't forget to share this information broadly within your extension organization and within your university. Also, don't forget to loop in your grants or your sponsored programs office so that they are aware of this funding opportunity and that they know about your particular interest in this, right? As we mentioned, especially with the standard and strengthening standard grant type, there is a very short window to prepare that letter of intent. And so we want to make sure that you are sharing that information so that everyone is aware about what's going on. Something else that you can also be doing right now is to start building a team. So who can you be connecting with like right now? So be sure to really think through and think about who you would want to talk to or need at the table, and really work to ensure that you're being inclusive in those conversations. I mentioned, the evaluation team, for example, earlier as someone you may need to start that conversation with now. As we know, evaluation is a critical part to any project, but sometimes it can be an afterthought. And so really thinking through that and building a team now who is very aware of the different components of a successful project is important. I would also, encourage you to consider other topical areas that may fall outside of traditional extension program areas. So for example, if you're at an institution of higher education, don't forget about those faculty and outreach staff in non-traditional agriculture areas that may align with food and agricultural systems. So engineering, community and regional planning, architecture, and public health are just a few of those. Something else you can be doing as well right now is to convene a meeting. So based upon those past extreme weather events or disasters where you live and where you work, what do you know is currently a problem or will be a problem? Consider those particular gaps in resources and services that you already are aware of, and start sharing ideas and getting those on paper. You'll be that much further ahead when you need to take action. And then finally, really assess what documents and information you'll need to apply for funding. So this may include tentative budget, current and pending funding lists for all team members, letters of support. So determine what is needed to apply for an AFRI grant, and all of that information again is listed in the RFA. So back to point one, right? Read that RFA and get familiar with it. But now is the time you can start getting those documents ready to go. So this concludes our prepared remarks on the A1712 program. So before we jump into the question and answer period, Danielle is going to demonstrate how to access the particular resources that we've put together for you and potential applicants. And she'll also provide a tour of what is available. So Danielle, I'll kick it back over to you.
Can you all see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay. All right. As mentioned multiple times, this program is part of it's an AFRI program, which is a competitive grant program, and there are 4 RFAs under AFRI. This program is in the AFRI Foundational and Applied Science program. So this is NIFA's landing page for all sorts of different grants. And here at the top, we see AFRI. I'm clicking on the AFRI Foundational and Applied Science program. And from here, there are a variety of different priority areas. This program is in the cross-cutting programs. So yet again, another link that I'm clicking on to get you to where our information is. And here we have a list of all the cross-cutting programs within the AFRI Foundational and Applied Science request for applications. Ours is listed right here, rapid response to extreme weather events across the food and agricultural system. And here we have a short description of this program, very similar to what you would see in the RFA. And yet again, another link and our email address, which is AFRI-rapidresponse@usda.gov. This is where you could contact any of our team members with questions or concerns. But if you click on this other sublink in the paragraph, this takes you to our true landing page. And this is where we go into more detail about this specific program for both the standard and strengthening standard and more information about the CAP grant. We have resources, including a fact sheet for both the standard and strengthening standard. And we have a CAP grant fact sheet as well. And we also have frequently asked questions that often come up when preparing a application for AFRI, and also specific things to consider for this program. Additionally, we have 4 pre-recorded informational webinars, and a lot of what we covered today is what you would find in a variety of these. But if you are planning on applying for the CAP or the strengthening or standard strengthening grants, we highly suggest that you view these, as they're really, really good information about what you'll need to do for the application process. If we keep scrolling down, we have a list of our 3 national program leaders. You met today Dr. Mueller and Dr. Ganguli. Dr. Colby is on the line, but did not present today. But if you click on these, you'll be able to access their emails. Now, I just want to show you what it looks like when you click on one of these fact sheets. It takes you to another resource page, and here you have the attachments listed. And just so you can get an idea of what this looks like, I'm gonna select the CAP grant fact sheet. And you can see here that it goes into quite a bit of detail and description about what you'll need to do, what to consider, the application deadline, and also who to contact with emails and phone numbers. And just so you can get an idea of what the frequently asked questions look like, it's a 8-page document, and we pose questions that have been asked and direct answers. So this is, again, another great resource as you're piecing together your application, or to direct people to if you know someone who's interested in applying. And so that's a bit about our website and the resources we have available. To the national program leaders, is there anything else you'd like me to highlight?
No, Danielle, I think that was great. We just put out a tremendous amount of information. And for some of you, this might be the first time you're hearing an in-depth treatment of this program area. So now we want to hear your questions or thoughts, any feedback you have. But we're here for the rest of the time to address whatever questions you have. And you can put those in the chat or just come off of mic. This is a small enough group. Please feel free to do that.
Hi, my name's Melissa. I'm in northern Wisconsin, and I'm curious if you have examples of past projects that you've funded so that we can kind of get an idea of what you mean by outreach or training after a disaster.
So Ashley, I'm going to take this one because I think this is an easier question for me, at least. Thank you for that question. This is a brand new program. And so we unfortunately cannot provide you examples. I think that the process of the LOI and the ability to reach out to us can hopefully address or provide you the information that you would need in terms of determining what would be appropriate in this instance. Ashley, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
I would just say this is where I think through, in particular, Eden and the network, and I think about some of the committees regarding those program areas, maybe worth having some conversations. For example, and this is just in my past life, right? Volunteerism in disasters is something that I have worked really closely with in managing spontaneous volunteers. So that could potentially be, something around which we might see, right, some training. But there are a lot of trainings, around food access and, sheltering, mass care, for example, trainings, like I think about ag systems and debris in field. So just in using that particular example, wanted to share that. But really, I think having conversations with your extension colleagues and also to kind of assessing what you've seen locally to kind of start framing, right, what may be needed or what extension and research opportunity there may be to explore further. Mm-hmm.
And one thing I do want to mention is that as we go forward and we start making awards, we do intend to promote this on our webpage, but then also as we are allowed to through NIFA's social media and other news related outlets. So if you're not already subscribed to some of those resources, please make sure to get on this.
Dr. Mueller, Dr. Ganguli, Dr. Farley, whichever wants to take this. Is it 14 days from the start of the incident or 14 days from the conclusion of the incident? And the reason I asked that is 2 years ago, we had a backwater flooding incident that lasted for about 97 days.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Well, I was going to have you actually maybe take a stab at that because it relates to a question that Molly also has in the chat, which we've talked about, and how do you determine this for drought? So maybe we could start with kind of both. You start, right. I'll piggyback.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice is that we did not go with a declaration approach where we're looking at FEMA or state declarations because of the natural issues, problematic issues of political components or these prolonged events. So one aspect I just want to touch on, how we addressed it, we're asking people to provide the justification for the need for this kind of a program. Right. And so we are working with people to provide that justification for a rapid-based response. And so with that, things like drought, often, you have that prolonged nature. Sometimes those can be followed up by a punctuated event like a wildfire or something like that. But often it's linked to something a little bit more long-term. Again, that justification can be prepared. When people submit their letters of intent, we go through our internal review process. And so it's not sent out to somebody who doesn't have the context of what we're considering fit for the program. And the LOI process is all about determining fit, not a pure assessment of merit at that point. Ashley.
Yeah, so I would just say, Tom, and to everyone, right? This is, I think, an important piece of that standard and strengthening standard application process is that letter of intent, right? And that is your opportunity as an applicant to kind of, as Amy used that word, context. So provide that context and that justification to say, listen, like, for example, you said 97 days, maybe it's day, 50, where all of a sudden we're realizing here that this is this need right now, right? And so there are these specific cases, right, where it's not just a flash event and that we have a distinct start point, but that it may be a building of sorts. And so that LOI is a really important piece of that application process and your opportunity as an applicant to convey to NIFA what's going on.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions? And again, feel free to put that in the chat box or just come off of mic. Come off of mute, sorry. So how about this? Can you give us a thumbs up if you're excited to see this program? All right. Very good. We're certainly happy, as Ashley mentioned. NIFA did have they in the past have tried to do some somewhat rapid related funding programs, but for various reasons, those did not stick. And one of the things that we tried to do is look at lessons learned, also what some other funding agencies are doing. We don't want to necessarily replicate what they're doing. We tried to look at the open niches. And if we are successful with this inaugural year, we absolutely have plans to broaden our request. Certainly, our administration right now is very supportive of programs like this. So we invite your continued feedback so that we can make sure that we have that front of mind for the future.
Ashley, Amy, anybody, and I'm sitting here thinking of some events, and is there a prohibition against something that's already gotten a federal disaster declaration, for instance? And I'm just throwing this out there because I know Connie's on the call, but should one of the fault lines go in the central US, I'm sure there will be a federal disaster declaration, but oftentimes some of those rural food supplies, those kind of things may not be addressed immediately in those situations. Could, in fact, Missouri and Tennessee and Arkansas and Illinois all apply for those for different components that they may need to address quickly in the event of a major disaster like that?
So there's a couple pieces to that question, Carrie, and that's a great one. So as we framed the program now, so with that specific example, we are focusing on the weather, the extreme weather incidents. So, the geological events like the earthquake are they're out of scope for this particular program. However, you bring up that potential multi-state collaboration or different pieces. This is something where, I see, I think, some opportunity, knowing, right, we've got a swath or a large geographic swath of, say, the country that is impacted by that same incident, that could be, right, where there is, and perhaps through Eden, right, an opportunity to do some coordination and ensure, one, we're not duplicating projects, but right, two, thinking about the networks within each of those institutions that really could bring a lot to the table. So, from my standpoint, and others, for example, Amy or Michelle, jump in here on this, but I think collaboration is something that I think would be great to see. And it ensures, right, that we're all kind of working together in step rather than in silos.
I agree. And I would just encourage you, especially with this group right here, you have a lot of context with your experience with Ashley. As things come up, do reach out and we can address those. We are going to try to keep our frequently asked questions up to date. But yes, I think these are, when you have a new program, things are going to come up that you don't necessarily think about. And so we want to just make sure to keep these lines of dialogue open. There are some limitations in what we can do once an RFA is published, but when things are within our purview, we're absolutely willing to explore them.
Are there prohibitions for doing short-term response activities? And the reason I bring this up, Eden is very, very conscious of the digital divide and the lack of service in those socioeconomically deprived areas. And nothing against FEMA. I'm not going to talk against another provider of assistance, but there is a very slim hope among many in the states that there will ever be local DRCs following weather events. And if we were to provide assistance to the state emergency management agency in each affected community, would that be a covered activity that would be viewed favorably under this program?
So Tom, I think that yes, there is an opportunity, right, to get information out to the people who need it. And thinking about, right, the frames of this particular program with that extension component or outreach and engagement component, and also too, right, integrated. We've got extension also in the mix there and research. You can see here that outreach is a really key focus of this program, and getting resources and information into the hands, perhaps literally, right, of the people who need it. And so that may be a frame or a lens in which a project is, really detailed out and submitted. Certainly could be that for sure. But of course, right, going back to your, your local situation and providing that context there. But again, knowing power outage and access to broadband, as we know, right, we've had these conversations a lot. I think that's some of what Eden officers discussed even last week. That there are a lot of need there, and how do we overcome those particular barriers and get information out?
Thank you.
Ashley, oh yeah, thank you, Tom, for that question. One of the comments that you just made about power outages, that, I just would like to share. One question that we've had is that, when you're in the midst of a disaster, the idea of submitting a letter of intent can be, to some people, overwhelming depending on what their situation is and their resources. One thing, just to be prepared, I encourage people to look at what the requirements are for the LOI. A letter of intent, it's only one page worth of information. The page number one is really who is applying, right? Just simply that standard information that you would expect. Then it's a one-page description addressing several things. So hopefully that's not too overwhelming, and we're hoping that through networks, people can reach out and have the appropriate team to help get that letter of intent done.
This is Connie Burnham in University of Missouri. So thanks again for hosting this. I am pretty clueless when it comes around to all these grants. I know what special needs are, those grants, because I've used those before in the past, but some of this other stuff, I'm completely clueless. So I'm going to ask you two questions. Is there a match to this? Is there any kind of from the university that's applying? No match.
Yeah, and it's like with our programs, just in general, it would have to be a commodity-based project for those matching resources. And in this case, I don't think that would be appropriate. And Michelle or Ashley, if you have any other information you want to share, but I think that's just a pretty straightforward answer.
Okay, good.
I would say, Connie, this is different than Smith-Lever Special Needs Competitive, where we do have a match requirement 100% on that. And that program is limited to 1862 institutions only. So those are very different requirements than AFRI. It is, yes, as Amy said, I echo what Amy said. Yes.
We're happy to know that. Okay, so what can the funding pay for?
So, and I don't have that link up, and it might, you might pull that. We're going to put a link in the chat box that will provide some very useful information, because this is under that AFRI portfolio. Basically, the information of what's eligible and not eligible is outlined in that. And so it's not uncommon, though, If you have specific questions that aren't clear to you in that document, please reach out and we'll get clarifications.
Okay.
You know, this is a time of the year where our awards management division is getting a lot of quick answers, and they're sending us quick responses or quick questions, and they're sending us quick responses.
All right, thank you.
I will just say, coming from my lens, so this is me being past point of contact. You know, I had not had much experience with AFRI, and so I'm telling you this from my experience. I am impressed with the way that the RFAs are put together. So there, if you've not had a chance to really look at an AFRI RFA, there are many programs that are included in that RFA. And so, but what's so wonderful about it is that a lot of that information, right, that we put in at the beginning describing the program or the eligibility is fairly consistent across those programs. And so I would say, you know, Connie, having a conversation with perhaps your grants office, sponsor programs, or somebody that's had some experience with applying for an AFRI RFA, I think could help provide a lot of just context and understanding. But the AFRI RFA does have too a really handy table of contents, and so it's a really nice feature to be able to, you know, just click on that and get to what you need. And then of course my hack on this is Control F, Control Find, if I'm looking for a certain you know, term or word, which also gets me to where I'm going. So that's just something I would say is hopefully helpful to you and others on the call.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks. That's a really good idea. Call the grants office and say, okay, I need to have a conversation with you. Thanks.
Well, and actually that brings up another point. One of the things that we've talked about, because of the rapid response, I'm a former academic. You'll find a lot of national program leaders have some recent connection to academia. And so one of the things to probably make your sponsored programs office or grants office aware of is your interest and intent to apply for grants like this. One of the things that when we have thought very hard about the timelines that we think we can handle. And that's based on now that NIFA has retooled some of their procedures, as well as we're back up to a critical capacity in terms of staff. We think that we can accomplish our portions in the timelines that we shared with you. The one thing we can't control is sometimes the delay that is associated with the applicant institutions. As a former academic, I know that sometimes that can be cumbersome, but if you're proactive and make sure that you have all of your supporting information complete, hopefully that can keep things going on your end. And again, if you do apply and you're running into some of those issues, please reach out and let us know. And one thing I'll say, even though you know, many of you are very familiar with Ashley, please try to use our team email address, because several of us are checking that frequently, and we want to get back to you as soon as possible. Other questions? All right. I think at this point then, Ashley, if you want to say any parting words, please go ahead.
Yes, I would be glad to. So Amy did reference the shared email. And so we are, as a team, making sure that we've got coverage on that all day, every day. And so, you know, again, we're kind of leaning into the response nature of this particular program. And so, you know, as you experience situations or have questions, especially as you're talking to folks at your institutions or within the network, and just re-clarification, don't hesitate. Of course, the RFA, right, is your friend. So don't hesitate there either. And two, just as a reminder, right, we just don't have the capacity within NIFA to be able to monitor these extreme weather events and disasters. And so this is where we need all of you and my encouragement to the network itself to share this information so that, you know, we can get these funds out to get to these projects, right, that can really extend the information and really cover, right, those gaps. So you'll see in that RFA, we've got our team email address there. I think I saw Danielle or somebody put it in the chat. Just thank you again for your time here this afternoon or this morning, wherever you are. And don't ever hesitate to reach out if you've got questions. So thanks again. And thanks to Eden for hosting a special edition webinar. We really appreciate it. Thanks all.
Thanks. Talk later.
Thank you all for doing this for us. We greatly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, folks had some good questions. And again, too, if any, even you